Hi there. It's been a little while since I've had a look at the graphics display calculator and the functions it can do. And now that we've completed all different kinds of polynomials, I thought it might be worth just having a bit of an explore. Hopefully, maybe you've done so already. So let's have a quick look at, I've got the calculator view here, and I'm going to have a look at some functions that we've seen before, just because I know they'll factorize fairly easily. But the first thing I thought I might point out under the menu button, if I go to 3 for algebra, I've shown you this before, but don't forget that solve button is there. And what you need to do is you need to put in some sort of expression. In this case, I'm going to put in a factorized expression that we already know the answer to. It's not worth putting into a calculator, just to show you that it can work. I'll put in my equation like so. Then I have to say, with respect to what variable do you want me to solve it? I know it's only got one, but you still need to tell it. So with respect to x, press return, and then you've got your 3 solutions there. X equals -2, that's from that one. X equals 1, and x equals 4. Notice it puts it in numerical order from least to greatest. Of course, it would also work if you just put in the whole thing. So if I just go x cubed minus x squared plus x minus 1, close bracket, oops, equals 0. It has to be an equation, and with respect to what variable? X. There you go. It's only got one solution, x equals 1. If you look at a previous video, you might see why there's not 3 solutions and only 1, but I'll leave that for you to have a look at some point. So that's the solve function. Look, solve function probably does it for most of it, but I do want to point out that if you have a look at number 8 there on this list, there's polynomial tools. There's other things that are useful, like zeros and completing the square and expand and factor. All of those things are useful, but I've covered them in other videos. So if I go down to polynomial tools, you'll see there's a whole bunch of things here. So if I go to find roots of the polynomial, for example, it says what degree polynomial have you got? Now, do you remember what that means? It means the highest power of the polynomial. So I'm going to say it's a degree 3 polynomial, and press OK. And you can see, because I've chosen a degree 3 polynomial, I've now got 1, 2, 3, 4 coefficients according to that little algorithm there. So a sub 0 is always going to be the constant, a sub 1 is x to the power of 1, a sub 2 is the coefficient of a to the x to the power of 2, a sub 3 is going to be the coefficient to x to the power of 3, and if it was a power of 4, there'd be an a sub 4, etc. So if I put in the coefficients, if I put in these coefficients here, that means 1x cubed minus 2x squared minus 8x, and let's just say we don't have a constant term. Instead of leaving it blank, we fill it in with a 0, so plus no constant term. Click on OK. There you go, and it generates the polynomial for you, x cubed minus 2x squared minus 8x, and it says with respect to x as well. So do that, and I get my solutions, -2, 0, 4. So that means that you could take that. If you can interpret it all, it's actually pretty good, because it means you can take that and say that it must be equal to x plus 2, x minus 4, and x all multiplied together. So it's polyroots, same sort of deal. I can go to algebra, I can go to polynomial tools. If you needed to look for the remainder, for example, polynomial of the, just say remainder then, I meant remainder. So if I said x cubed minus 2x squared minus 8x, and let's say I want to say what happens when I divide this by x minus 1, what would the remainder be? It's -9. And if I do the same thing again, oops, I'll just select and copy and paste it. But this time I'll go x plus 2. What would you expect the remainder to be if I divide it by x plus 2? Give you a moment to think about that. Pause if you need to. Have a look at what's happened before. There we go. It's equal to 0, a remainder of 0, which makes sense because up here we saw that -2 is a solution, which means that x plus 2 is a factor of this, which means that the remainder should be 0, and it is, because that's what a factor means, no remainder. Menu 8, oops, wrong place there. Menu 3 for algebra, 8 for polynomial tools. There's other things as well you can play around with. There's coefficients of a polynomial and degrees of a polynomial. I don't think they're particularly useful, but you know, if you needed to confirm your work, like if you're doing if you're doing a quadratic and you needed to know what the coefficients were of a particular equation, then you know, maybe this is a fraction, so I'll use my fraction button here and say it's all over 3, and you wanted to make sure you got your coefficients right. You could put that in, and you can see that the coefficients, it's split it for you. So it's 5/3, -1, -3 on 3, and 1/3. So there you go. It's kind of useful, I think. 2 more examples and I'll leave it here. Algebra, polynomial tools, degrees of polynomial. So again, I'll just put in a random one again. 5x squared plus 11x cubed minus 2x minus 1. Maybe that's the polynomial. And it tells me it's a degree 3 polynomial because there it is there in the middle, x cubed. So it's a degree 3 polynomial. So it really does take the thinking away. I kind of really strongly feel that, you know, by the time you've typed all that in, surely you can scan your eyes across that and see that it's a degree 3 polynomial, surely. But I guess it's a confirmation if you need it. The other thing it's a good confirmation for is, if I go to 3 for algebra, 8 for polynomial tools, 8 for degree of polynomial, and if you're given something like this in your exam or test, like that. So there's a 1 on X there, can you see that? And I press return. You get an argument error. Now, if you can't interpret this, that's when you sort of think, oh, what have I done? But the first argument must be a polynomial expression in the second argument. If the second argument is omitted, the software attempts to select the default. So it's basically saying it doesn't understand. If I click on OK, it gives me an argument error. And it's also formatted this to a fraction. But it might be just enough for you to know that if you get an error, either you've made a mistake or perhaps one of those powers is not a positive whole number power. And there it is there. That 1 on X is actually X to the power of -1. So simply by typing it in, you can confirm, oh yeah, it isn't a polynomial, because otherwise I wouldn't have got an argument error. So there you go. I'll leave it there, so I won't stretch out the video too long, but there's a whole bunch of functions there that it's worth playing around with. The more you play with them, the faster you are at using them. The faster you are at using them, the more useful they are in a test. But remember, it's not always useful. Take that one for an example. I don't think that's particularly useful. Maybe you do. So always use your calculator with discretion. And don't forget, when you're looking at a calculator question, look at the number of marks to determine how much calculator you can get away with and how much working out you really have to write down. That'll do for today.